I'm Laura. I'm an educator, community advocate, and I'm here to tell you that domestic labor is labor and your time is valuable. So what is the Fair Play Method? The Fair Play Method is a system that was developed by Rodsky. Rodsky is a New York Times bestseller, a Harvard-trained organizational manager, and somebody who really cares about research. She used her background to develop a system, a framework that real families can put into place to solve problems around unequal distribution of labor at home. Fair Play is an excellent book. I recommend anybody go out and get it. It's also on audio. She reads it. In it, she tells her story, the story that many of us know all too well, which is that we live in a society which tells us that we need to give ourselves to our jobs, to our spouses, and to our children, and forget our own needs. We live in a society which tells us that the measure of value is in dollars and cents, but we forget about the actual value of community and care and the making of life. We need to have money to survive. Most of us need to have a full-time job in order to have access to things like healthcare, where minimum wage is not a living wage and where affordable childcare is incredibly hard to find. But right now, let's get down to the absolute basics. Eve started out by breaking down what a domestic household takes. So there are 100 cards in the Fair Play deck, 60 of which go to just a couple, and then there are an additional 40 if you have children. Your deck comes with a little manual. Inside of the deck, you find your home cards. Those are the things that need to be done on a certain time schedule, like laundry or dishes or weeknight meals. And then there's the out cards, so things that need to be done away from home, like taking your kids to school. We also have caregiving cards, caring for yourself, your pet, your kids. And then we have magic cards and wild cards. The magic cards are things like getting gifts for your kids' teachers, or talking about the tooth fairy, planning for holidays, vacations. It could also be the tough stuff, like if your kid is having a crisis. And then the wild cards. These are temporary, but they're big. And that means that some of the other responsibilities need to be shifted in order to accommodate for these wild cards. If you have kids during this pandemic, you know that daycare could shut down at any given time. And oftentimes couples fall into this trap where one person always feels like they need to be the one to step in and save the day. Fair play is about having explicit division of labor around this and discussing before anyone else becomes the default. The last and most important piece of the Fair Play deck is the Unicorn Space card. You hold your own Unicorn Space card. Unicorn Space is that creative space, that space that you don't owe anyone. It's your permission to be unavailable to your roles and your proximity to others. It's about following something that fulfills you. If you take nothing else from the Fair Play system, this is one place where you can start to fill your own cup. 1 hour a week where you set a hard boundary around you time can make a world of difference and ripple throughout your life. One of the main ideas behind Fair Play is that each person in a partnership is going to hold the entire card. So let's get into this one. The dishes card. Seems simple, right? But when you really dig into it, there are a couple of pieces that are really important. Eve calls them the conception, the planning, and the execution of a task. All tasks have those 3 parts. When you start talking about the division of labor and you start talking to couples about how their division is, the couples say that they have pretty good division of labor before coming to the Fair Play system are usually talking about the execution piece. One person is the helper and the other person is the director or the default. Can you help me with the dishes? Can you put the dishes away? Can you take the trash out? Can you fold the laundry or bring it upstairs? That's helping, but the responsibility remains on one partner. When you start implementing the Fair Play system, you can start with the conception, the planning, and the execution, and you can set the minimum standard of care. This is harder than it seems. So at my house, we don't have a dishwasher. We have a big, huge porcelain farm sink. And to us, our minimum standard is not that the entire thing is washed out and bleached, but it's that we have enough dishes to have a functional house. I used to think that it was really important to me to have a totally sparkling clean, trap cleaned out, all of the dishes put away exactly where they needed to be. I used to be that way. But when I sat down with my partner and we talked about what really mattered to us, we were able to come to a great compromise. Prior to us having an explicit conversation about who was taking dishes, it was always both of us doing it or tripping over each other, or both of us not doing it. We were always in this state of feeling like someone was underperforming on the task or it wasn't done to the other person's expectations. We were functioning this way without ever setting the expectation. So he and I sat down. The conception piece, when I think about dishes, is going around the house, noticing that there are a bunch of cups or plates or things in kids' bedrooms, and noticing the need for our family. It's that anticipation of needs piece. It's also thinking about what's coming up that week. So I know that we use a special container for my daughter's lunch. It's noticing that it's in the wash space and it needs to be put away and prepared for the next day. It's making sure that we have the pots that we're going to need for whatever big meals are coming up. The planning piece is, when am I going to have time to go around the house and collect all of the things I need? Do we have soap? Do we have sponges? Is there anything going on tonight? Am I going to be gone until 9 p.m.? Or am I going to have time before the kids go to bed so I don't rattle around in the kitchen and wake them up? The last step to doing the dishes is actually doing them. And you need to have a talk with your partner about what that means. Is it soaking them ahead of time? What type of soap? Are you using Bronner's, Dr. Bronner's, or Dawn? Talk about what it means. Do you put them on the rack and then immediately put them away? Are you okay with setting them out or storing them somewhere? Another real key piece to having that conversation is setting a time limit on things. At my house, we have a rotating stack of dishes, and it's okay with us to just have them sitting there for a long period of time. You can grab what you need. We basically fly through these things so quickly that it's a perpetual thing. Having that conversation about where your values are and setting that is called setting the minimum standard of care. So there are two key pieces to implementing this. It's talking through the conception, the planning, and the execution, and then it's setting the minimum standard of care. This is also a piece where a lot of people get into disagreements about what is reasonable to meet your family's needs. A good way to approach this is to tell your why, tell your story. For me, I used to think that I wanted the entire sink to be cleaned out because I liked the way it looked. It caused me to be able to take a deep breath. I felt calm in my kitchen. But then I realized the reason I felt calm is because I knew that if I came home with the groceries, I could wash all of my produce and it would be easy peasy. I could just put it right away. That is why I felt calm, because it made my space more functional. Knowing that all of the pots and pans were scrubbed and put away made the efficiency of making dinner so much easier. It also gave us an opportunity to talk about why sometimes the dishes didn't get done on time, because we had never talked about what on time meant. And while his expectations of it were different than mine, this was a framework for us to sit down and decide what it was for both of us. And if you come to a disagreement here, you can always default to the community standard. What is healthy? Ask around your friends, what do you do? And if there's a task where you just feel like you will never come to an agreement about it, it completely, totally matters to be done a very specific way by one person, and the other person just can't buy into that, then you either need to see how valuable it is to that person to do it in that specific way and why it's valuable to them, or that person just needs to take it and you can take something else off of the plate. Now, one more core, very important piece to the Fair Play method is a healthy check-in. Buying into the system and learning how to do things to a way that you compromise, it's very important to give each other the space to learn and grow. If you've always been the person to do the laundry or to point and shoot and tell everybody what to do in a way that works for you, then you need to teach yourself to take a step back. Setting a boundary around your time also means not swooping in to fix it. There are natural consequences. If you don't get to something, like you forget to do a load of laundry by a certain amount of time, your 4-year-old's going to get pissed off because they don't have the dress that they need. And the person whose responsibility it was to get the laundry done now has the responsibility of fixing it. It's also important to save your feedback until the check-in. It's incredibly unhelpful when your partner is learning how to feel empowered in a new role and taking on tasks at home to be telling them that they're doing it wrong. Saving it until an established time when you two can sit down with a bowl of ice cream or maybe one glass of wine when your emotions are low and your cognition and your brain state is high. Taking a deep breath in the moment, waiting 90 seconds to cool down before giving any feedback, it sets you up to trust each other. Provide space for each other to follow through and also build on that positive communication. Trust that you both can give it your best shot for an entire week before you meet up to have a talk about it. A healthy check-in is reminding each other that you love each other, noticing how you showed each other care during the week, and then having a constructive talk about anything that could have done better. Think about the goal for why you're even spending your time on a system like this. It's because you're invested in being together long term, breaking down that resentment, and reducing the feeling of being micromanaged. No longer do you want to be boiling over and spending your time communicating in a negative way. This is a framework to build healthy and effective communication. And now before I sign off, I want to tell you that your fair is not my fair. This is about opening up that communication with your partner. The aim is not 50-50. The aim is whatever is fair for you and your partnership. So what small step can you two take toward equity? Because remember, domestic labor is labor and your time is valuable.